The Life of Enji Todoroki, Endeavor, My Hero Academia. Enji Todoroki, also known as the Flame Hero Endeavor, is the pro hero with the highest tally of resolved cases in history, husband to Rei Todoroki, and father of Toya, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto Todoroki. Following All Might's retirement, Enji temporarily became the #1 hero after being the #2 hero for a very long time, and after the latest Hero Billboard Chart JP announcement, officially became the #1 hero. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Enji Todoroki. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media accounts. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Background. Enji Todoroki desired to be the top hero and dedicated most of his life to it, and at age 20, he already climbed to the #2 position. However, All Might was always the most popular hero, and eventually, Enji realized the gap was way too big and began to hold a sense of fear and begrudging respect towards the latter. Despite his efforts, he couldn't surpass All Might, so he decided to change strategy and conceive a child powerful enough to fulfill his goal in his place. For that reason, Enji married Rei Himura, after negotiating with her family to a quirk marriage in order to get his hands on her ice quirk. Enji attempted to conceive and raise a child strong enough to usurp All Might. Despite being an arranged marriage, Enji really had feelings for Rei, and so the first few years went well. When he was 22 years old, their first son Toya was born with a fire quirk that was even more powerful than Enji's Hellflame quirk. Despite not inheriting his mother's ice quirk to overcome the downside of overheating, he still planned on raising him to be a hero. He still sought a child who would inherit the quirks of fire and ice, and Rei wanted more children, believing they could encourage each other, which ultimately led to Fuyumi's birth. Sadly, she only inherited Rei's ice quirk, but he was still happy either way because he felt that since Toya had more potential, he could place all his ambitions on him. However, his plans were cut short when he discovered that Toya inherited the weak constitution of his mother Rei Todoroki, which made him vulnerable to heat and therefore limiting the use of his fire quirk, causing burns on his skin if he abused it. No longer wanting to train him and being unable to make Toya himself quit, Enji decided to have more children, hoping Toya would finally give up on his ambition to become a hero, which ultimately led to the birth of his third child, Natsuo, and eventually Shoto. It's implied that around that time, Endeavor's obsession with conceiving the perfect child who would inherit both his Hellflame quirk and Rei's ice quirk grew, and shows signs of his attitude and relationship towards his family beginning to worsen. Enji eventually found his masterpiece in his fourth child, Shoto, pushing aside and ignoring the rest of his children who he deemed as failures. This rejection especially affected his firstborn, Toya, who was secretly training to regain his father's affection. Enji told him to stop because he's hurting himself, and advised him to look beyond the world of being a hero and do things like play with his siblings or make friends at school. Crying, Toya replied he can't. After all, he was the one who lit the fire in him to surpass All Might, teaching him to never give up. When the rest of the family came to see what was happening, Toya tells his father to look at him as he charged with his flames activated at his mother carrying an infant Shoto. He was stopped before he could hurt anyone. But after Toya's outburst, Enji decided to ban the other siblings from interacting with Shoto so he can focus on his training, and entrusted Rei to look after Toya. When Rei said that all Toya wants is for his father to acknowledge him, Enji replied that all he can show anyone is the world of heroes, to which Rei scathingly replied that he's just running away from his problems. When Shoto was 5 years old, Enji began training him to become a hero. However, the training was harsh and detestable. Rei tried to defend Shoto, saying that he was too young, but Enji refused to listen and ordered her to stay out of his way, hitting her for interfering. Enji also prevented Shoto from interacting with his older brothers and sister. Meanwhile, Toya continued to train in secret until one day, during the winter season, he got his fire quirk to grow stronger. Shortly afterwards, excited to show his father how he had developed, Toya asked him to come to Sekoto Peak the next time he had a day off. Enji, however, lifted up his shirt and saw his burn scars, angry that Toya had been training again. But his son was adamant that he was destined for greatness and determined to make his father proud of him. Frustrated, Enji ignored his eldest son's pleas and hit Rei for not stopping Toya, causing Shoto to yell at him to not bully her. Enji told his youngest son to stay out of it. Rei confessed to her husband that she couldn't stop Toya. His worsening behavior began to affect Rei, to the point that she began to see her husband's face in her children, until one day she snapped and threw boiling water at Shoto's face. After this incident, Enji had her admitted to a mental hospital. After learning of this, Shoto angrily blamed him for what happened to his mother. Shortly after Rei's hospitalization, Toya went back to Sekoto Peak, expecting his father to come to see his new powers, but he didn't appear. At the time, Enji thought it would only throw fuel onto Toya's ambitions, but in truth, he didn't know what to say to him. Either way, his not showing up caused Toya to lose control of his flames, resulting in a massive wildfire. Enji could only watch from afar the massive fire in horror, knowing Toya was there. When the fire was extinguished, Enji was among the burnt trees in the aftermath, looking for Toya but couldn't find him. He was believed to have been burned alive from the flames exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius, since only his lower jawbone was ever found. His death affected his family, especially his mother Rei, whose mental state had already been harshly affected by her husband's past abuses, and his brother Natsuo, who still considers his father responsible for Toya's demise. The family installed a Butsudan Buddhist altar in his former room after his passing and still send their prayers to him. Even Enji is seen praying at it, saying that he regrets the loss of his eldest son. Enji didn't stop obsessing over Shoto after killing Toya. At some point in his career as a hero, he arrested Hawks' father, who was a notorious criminal. Vigilantes Beginning Arc. Enji is involved in a series of villain attacks caused by a criminal organization known as the Villain Factory, whose goals are unknown. For several weeks, the Villain Factory was dedicated to distributing through Naruhata streets a drug known as Trigger, an illegal substance that boosts quirks but turns its consumers into violent instant villains. One day, one of the factory's agents, Kuin Hachisuka, uses her Queen Bee quirk to inject the drug into innocent civilians, turning them into a horde of instant villains, causing chaos at the streets. Suddenly, Endeavor and several other heroes such as All Might, Airjet, Ingenium, Midnight, Eraserhead, and several others appear and suppress all the instant villains in a short space of time. Sky Egg Arc. On the occasion of Captain Celebrity's return to the United States, Makoto Tsukauchi decides to organize a farewell show at the Tokyo Sky Egg, inviting several of Japan's most famous heroes to participate, but Endeavor rejects the invitation considering the event absurd. Final Performance Arc. About 3 years after the Sky Egg bombing, Kazuho Hanayama, better known as the freelance idol Popstep, had been kidnapped and turned into the host for the Queen Bee by the villain number 6. Renaming herself Bee-Pop, she used several bomb bees in her performance to terrorize and blow up parts of Naruhata. On the day Bee-Pop attacked again, Endeavor had been called to deal with her. On top of a building, Endeavor listens to Bee-Pop's new song, Inferno, and expresses his displeasure at the song to Detective Naomasa, who's next to him. Endeavor then angrily declares to take action and give Bee-Pop a first-hand taste of a real inferno. Naomasa reminds Endeavor that their goal is to capture Bee-Pop, but Endeavor deems Bee-Pop too dangerous as she has a quirk powerful enough to blow up the town with ease. Therefore, Endeavor decides that the best course of action is to annihilate her with a wide-scale assault, leaving Naomasa in shock. Once the flaming sidekickers send up signal flames after evacuating the citizens in the area, Endeavor prepares to use his Hellflame quirk without worry. Naomasa calls out Endeavor to wait, but the hero has already started his assault with his super move Karmic Rays Hellfire Storm, sending an intense flaming tornado towards Bee-Pop. Despite launching a seemingly crude attack, Endeavor is actually controlling the tornado to minimize damage to the city. Little by little, the bees begin to explode due to the intense heat of the flames, and Bee-Pop seems to be unable to react in time to her incoming flaming demise. Suddenly, Burnin yells out for Endeavor, who irritatingly cancels his attack. Angry, he yells out to Naomasa, thinking that everyone had been ordered to get out, and asks him why there's a twig of a hero in his way. Naomasa realizes that this twig of a hero chasing after Bee-Pop is none other than the Naruhata vigilante Koichi Himawari, the Crawler. Enraged, Endeavor claims that the vigilante is nothing more than a hero wannabe without a license, and declares the Crawler to be nothing more than another villain. Endeavor begins to suffer from fatigue due to overusing his quirk. A group of heroes come to his aid and extinguish his body with fire hoses. Naomasa arrives and sees the hero slowing down in momentum and warns others to pull back as Bee-Pop is headed their way with her explosions. Endeavor angrily declares that he will burn everything down, including Bee-Pop and the Crawler. By the time Endeavor recovers from his fatigue, Koichi had managed to break Popstep out of the Queen Bee's control. However, Popstep had been shot with a bullet by number 6, which would order the Bomb Bees and Queen Bee to explode. Koichi begins to run away from number 6, who's pretending to be a hero named O'Clock 2, with the latter pursuing him as the bees behind him explode. Up ahead, Koichi and number 6 notice Endeavor, who's ready to resume his confrontation. Endeavor notices that the Crawler is carrying an injured Popstep, so as long as he's carrying her, the Crawler can only hop around. Endeavor states that Koichi won't get away, and that he's just an All Might hoodie-wearing punk. Koichi, realizing that he has no other choice, decides that he can't stop or waste time to save Popstep. Number 6, who had yet to be noticed by Endeavor, tries to use this situation in his favor by killing Koichi when he leaves the main street into an alley. To the villain's surprise, Koichi neither stops nor swerves, and instead dives right into Endeavor. Seeing the crawler darting straight towards him, Endeavor starts shooting fireballs at him, to which Koichi dodges as best he can. At one point, while dodging, a fireball causes Koichi's hood to fly up. Enraged by seeing the antennas, which resemble All Might, Endeavor uses his super move, Raging Assault Hell Minefield. The ground begins to explode from the attack, forcing Koichi and Number 6 to jump and dodge the ground level attack. Number 6, while in midair, thinks he's managed to get to safety, but then Endeavor lets off a huge explosion which takes out all of the bees. Number 6 realizes too late that Endeavor's move is a two-folded attack and begins to get burnt in midair. Meanwhile, Koichi manages to float above the flames thanks to his quirk Slide and Glide, and the energy at his feet begin to transform, allowing the vigilante to blast off and fly into the sky, leaving everyone dumbfounded. With no intention of letting them escape, Endeavor hurries towards the place where he saw the crawler land. Once there, he finds Midnight holding an unconscious Bebop in her arms. With her are her sidekicks as well as a trio of young men. Midnight explains to Endeavor that the villain Bebop has been captured and that she urgently needs medical care. Endeavor then asks her about the crawler, and Midnight replies that he managed to run away. Endeavor ponders for a few seconds and allows them to take Pop to the hospital. He's sure that there's something bigger in the whole thing, and that Kazuho may have answers, so he needs her alive to be able to interrogate her. When he's left alone in an alley, he tries to find some clues about the vigilantes, but he finds that there's no one there and leaves the place, but not before crushing a water pipe to cool his fire down, frustrated that the crawler has managed to escape. In the aftermath of the incident, Endeavor is credited for taking down Popstep, although his actions were met with mixed reactions by the public. Entrance Exam Arc. Endeavor's photo is posted on a billboard screen when pro heroes unite to fight a giant enemy. He's later seen in a television ad for UA High School. He's first mentioned in a list of notable UA alumni. UA Sports Festival Arc. Endeavor comes up in a conversation between fans about how his son is participating in the UA Sports Festival. When the cavalry battle begins, Endeavor watches furiously from the bleachers as Shoto tells his team that he never uses his left side in combat. Endeavor continues watching the sports festival while Shoto and his team battle Team Midoriya for the 10 million points that would win the cavalry battle. He notes that Izuku Midoriya is exploiting Shoto's weakness by keeping to his left side and says Shoto is foolish for allowing his opponent to do so. During the intermission following the cavalry battle, All Might greets Endeavor in a stairwell. All Might says that they haven't spoken to each other in 10 years and he wants to catch up. Endeavor angrily tells him to get lost and to stop acting like old friends. As Endeavor leaves, All Might says that Shoto was able to perform well using half his power and asks for advice on how to raise the next generation of heroes. Endeavor dismisses his request and states Shoto will be a hero that will surpass All Might, even though he's going through his rebellious phase. He walks away after disconcerting All Might by saying that it's the reason he created Shoto. Prior to the final round, Endeavor confronts Shoto before his match against Hantasero. He berates his son, telling Shoto that he could have easily taken first in the first and second rounds of the festival had he used his flames. Endeavor reminds Shoto that his purpose is to surpass All Might, and that unlike his siblings, Shoto is his greatest masterpiece. This only angers Shoto, who replies that he will not give Endeavor the satisfaction and only use his mother's quirk. As Shoto excuses himself, Endeavor tells him that even if that works for the festival, Shoto will eventually find the limits of that power. Endeavor encounters Izuku on his way to face Shoto in the second round of the finals. He tells Izuku he was impressed with his performance against the brainwashing guy and notes his quirk is similar to All Might's. As Izuku tries to excuse himself, Endeavor tells him that Shoto has a duty to usurp All Might, and this next match will prove to be an excellent benchmark. He asks Izuku to hit Shoto hard and to do his best not to disgrace either of them. He apologizes for interrupting Izuku and prepares to leave, but is halted when Izuku states he's not All Might. Izuku goes on to say that Shoto may be his son, but he isn't Endeavor. Endeavor is slightly annoyed and goes to the tournament arena to watch the match. Once Shoto finally ignites his flames during his battle with Izuku, Endeavor explodes with wicked excitement and satisfaction. He's ecstatic to see his son has decided to use his left side and approaches the edge of the stands, shouting proudly that Shoto will fulfill his ambitions. Afterwards, Endeavor meets Shoto in the corridor. He tells Shoto that he needs to gain more control of his fire, and that he's proud of him for using it at all. Endeavor goes on to say that after he graduates, he will allow Shoto to work alongside him. However, Shoto says that he can't change so easily and hasn't rescinded his disavowal of him. Shoto states that the only reason he used his firepower was because for a split second, he completely forgot about Endeavor, and then walks away saying that perhaps he no longer needs his father. Endeavor watches begrudgingly as Shoto defeats Ida using only his ice, pondering why Shoto feels the need to keep holding back. Versus Hero Killer Arc. For the draft following the UA Sports Festival, Endeavor sends Shoto an internship opportunity at his agency. Shoto notices his father's name among his offers. Endeavor is pleasantly surprised when Shoto actually chooses his agency to intern with during the week following the festival. He questions if Shoto has finally decided to follow him, but his son refutes that and states he will make his own path. Endeavor immediately directs Shoto to get ready to leave so he can show him what it means to be a hero. They travel to Hosu City in hopes of finding hero killer Stain. When chaos erupts in the city, Endeavor instructs Shoto and his sidekicks to follow him into battle. Shoto stops after receiving a message on his phone, prompting Endeavor to yell at him. Even so, Shoto leaves and asks Endeavor to send heroes to a specific location after he's handled the situation. Endeavor eventually happens upon Gran Torino fighting against Nomu. He claims that he'll handle the creature himself, but is surprised when his initial attack doesn't instantly KO it. The Nomu uses its quirk to shoot flames back at Endeavor, but he's unimpressed. Gran Torino warns Endeavor that Nomu may have multiple quirks and takes it upon himself to defeat it. Endeavor is impressed with the old man and asks him to go to the location Shoto gave him earlier. Gran Torino says that they should restrain the Nomu and aid the other heroes, but Endeavor states that he alone will be sufficient. As the situation with another Nomu fighting against the pros worsens, Endeavor arrives to save them. He punches away Nomu and breaks its arm before it crushes a female pro. He notices the Nomu has super regenerative abilities and decides to burn away its head to defeat it in their next scuffle, stating that incinerated cells can't regenerate. The third Nomu flies away with a hero in its talons, prompting Endeavor to tell the other pros to go where Shoto is so he can chase it himself. Endeavor manages to injure the winged Nomu using his quirk's various applications, including scaling a wall and creating a flame spear to pierce its head. It drops the hero but continues to flee. Endeavor chases the Nomu until he arrives to a scene where Stain has just killed it. Recognizing the hero killer, Endeavor challenges him, but Gran Torino pleads for him to wait as Stain still has Izuku hostage. Stain's mask falls off, and he yells that Endeavor is another false hero. Stain goes on to state that only All Might will kill him, and releases a malefic aura that makes even Endeavor take a step back. After Stain suddenly stops, Endeavor notes that he's lost consciousness. In the aftermath of the incident in Hosu City, Endeavor is given all the credit for Stain's defeat so Shoto and the others would avoid punishment for using their quirks illegally to fight the hero killer. My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. While he doesn't appear in person, it's revealed that he was one of the pro heroes invited to iExpo, but he instead sent Shoto to represent him. Hideout Raid Arc. Following the abduction of Katsuki Bakugo by the hands of the League of Villains, Endeavor is recruited by Naomasa Tsukauchi. Detective Naomasa assigns Endeavor to the Hideout Raid team, a task force assigned to rescue Katsuki from the villain's hideout in Kamino Ward. Endeavor meets with the police alongside Edshot, Best Jeanist, Tiger, Gang Orca, Kamui Woods, Mount Lady, and All Might for a strategy meeting. Prior to the infiltration, Endeavor complains about cleaning up UA's mess because he's a busy man. Best Jeanist tells him to settle down his ego and to remember that they're both UA alumni. That night, Endeavor sets up a perimeter around the villain's hideout with the police. All Might, Edshot, Gran Torino, and Kamui Woods storm the hideout and restrain the villains. Endeavor complains that Edshot got to rush in while he remains posted outside. Naomasa explains that the police need Endeavor in case any criminal escapes the hideout. Suddenly, a black liquid portal sends multiple Nomu to the hideout. Endeavor and the police force are unable to help the heroes inside as the villains and Katsuki get warped away. Endeavor angrily asks Naomasa why the situation has spun out of control. Naomasa believes that Best Jeanist and his squad were compromised at the Nomu factory. All Might defeats the Nomu inside the building and comes outside to confront Endeavor. He asks Endeavor if he has the situation under control. Irritated, Endeavor claims he's not having any trouble and tells All Might to leave and go after the villains. After apprehending all the Nomu, Naomasa asks Endeavor, Edshot, and Kamui Woods to support All Might. Endeavor reaches the destroyed remains of the Nomu factory and attacks All for One with a stream of flames before the villain can attack All Might. All Might has entered his weakened state, and Endeavor is upset by the sight of All Might's body. Endeavor recalls always trying to catch All Might, but always being unable to. He yells at All Might, demanding that the symbol of peace fight and show everyone why he's the better hero. All for One interrupts and tells Endeavor to leave if he's just going to encourage All Might. Edshot attacks All for One and tells him the heroes are there to assist. Endeavor and Edshot work together against All for One, while Kamui Woods saves Best Jeanist and the other injured members of the Hideout Raid team. The other heroes encourage All Might despite his appearance, and All For One grows tired of the sentimental talk. The villain uses a giant air cannon to blow Endeavor and Edgeshot away so that he can fight All Might one-on-one. All Might ultimately defeats All For One and is forced to retire in the aftermath. Enraged, Endeavor returns home. Without All Might around, Endeavor must become the new #1 hero. Endeavor refuses to accept the rank of #1 in this manner, enraging him and leading him to set his training hall on fire. Remedial Course Arc. During the second Provisional Hero License training exam, Endeavor furiously enters, thanking All Might for looking after Shoto. He then demands to have a proper chat with All Might. Endeavor, along with All Might and Present Mic, enter the room where the training was being held, and Endeavor shouts Shoto's name to encourage him and gains the attention of everyone there. Everyone in the room were merely curious as to why he was there, but they grew ecstatic upon noticing All Might with him. Endeavor asks the former #1 hero what the symbol of peace is, telling him about how he became the #2 hero at the young age of 20, but immediately knew he would never beat All Might, which is why he entrusted everything to Shoto. In response, All Might states that he always believed that the country needed a symbol to be the beacon of light, and in doing so, he ignored the people around him, such as his former sidekick. All Might tells Endeavor that he knows his struggle of filling in his spot as the #1 hero, and tells him he doesn't need to follow in his footsteps to become the same symbol, but find his own way of doing things instead. Enji later congratulates Shoto after he succeeded in his hero license exam and tries to pat his son on the head, though Shoto gives him the cold shoulder. Undeterred by this rejection, Enji simply tells his son that he would try to be a better hero and man that Shoto could be proud of. Seeing Enji's change of heart, Inasa wills himself to approach the hero and tells Endeavor that he will be cheering him on. Enji thanks Inasa for his support. Slowly but surely, Enji and the students of the Provisional Hero License course training are making progress. Pro Hero Arc. It's time for the broadcast of the Hero Billboard Chart JP. This announcement is being held at Kamino for its importance and is special for the fact that All Might will not be on the chart for the first time, as well as the top 10 heroes themselves appearing on stage for the presentation of their rankings. The new #1 hero is revealed to be the same hero who temporarily received the ranking. It's none other than the flame hero Endeavor, who's wearing a new hero costume. While speaking, the new #2 hero, Hawks, asks Endeavor what it's like to be the #1 hero, but receives a glare from the flame hero. Remembering what All Might advised him, Endeavor says one thing: to just watch him. This surprises the heroes in the stadium as Hawks claps. Backstage, an angry Endeavor confronts Hawks and is not too pleased with his behavior. Hawks convinces Endeavor that he was simply trying to make an impact so that Endeavor could look better. Hawks reveals that he was never an All Might fan and never wanted to be like him, but his retirement was a big shock to him. Hawks believes that society doesn't need an icon hero like All Might, but a leader with a mental fortitude to support them all, believing that Endeavor has such a quality and is impressed by him. Although he's not able to tell if Hawks is being truthful, sarcastic, or mocking him, Endeavor wonders why Hawks doesn't become this leader, to which Hawks admits that he would rather be lower in the rankings so that he would have more freedom. Unimpressed with Hawks' immaturity, Endeavor bluntly states his displeasure for Hawks and ends their conversation, telling him to apologize to everyone else. As Endeavor walks away, Hawks tells Endeavor the reason he wanted to talk to him. In this area, the number of concerning sightings has been making him worry, and he would like to team up with the #1 hero. These sightings have to do with Nomus, which catches Endeavor's attention. While walking the streets, a villain is struck down by Hawks' red feathers. As he strikes down the villain, Hawks tells Endeavor about a restaurant they can eat at so that they can discuss business. A dog is almost run over by a truck, but Hawks' red feathers carry the dog to safety. All the while, Hawks is busy occupied with his talk with Endeavor. Soon, the public takes note of Hawks' rare appearance, and some of them take photos with him while Endeavor nonchalantly stands by. The people take notice of Endeavor but are reluctant to make contact with him. One boy bets his friend to ask for Endeavor's autograph. Seeing this, Endeavor welcomes this and allows the boy to approach him. However, the boy is taken aback by Endeavor's new attitude and believes that him being a gruff and angry hero suited him better and shies away as his friend apologizes for him. While the event leaves Endeavor confused. At the Umai building, Hawks tells Endeavor that after UA's sports festival, he sent an offer to his son Shoto. However, Hawks is happy that Fumikage was the one who ended up coming since Shoto failed the Provisional Hero License exam, and having that would have ruined his image, much to Endeavor's anger, who finds it strange that Hawks has knowledge of that despite not being a UA graduate. Having had enough of the useless talk, Endeavor wants to know about the rumors Hawks has been hearing. Hawks knows that the League of Villains puppets, the modified humans called Nomus, were stored in a facility in Kamino Ward, but after they were captured along with All For One, they rarely appeared. However, Hawks isn't able to confirm that the rumors are true, which infuriates Endeavor, who tries to leave. Hawks informs Endeavor that the rumors aren't just in his area, but the entire country, as he's heard it from wives gossiping or school children chatting on the way home. Hawks secretly launched an investigation with the police force, but they came up dry, and after investigating himself by flying throughout the country, all he heard of was rumors. Although never managing to find proof, Hawks, after hearing that everyone knows about Nomus, believes that someone's going around spreading these rumors to strike panic into the public, and knows this to be true because the villain they encountered on the way was influenced by a reprinting of Destro's autobiography. Hawks desires for Endeavor to become a leader that can lay these rumors to rest, and tell the populace to take it easy. Hawks wants to live in an ideal world where all heroes can take leisure in their work without ever stressing out, wanting heroes to have more free time. Suddenly, Hawks and Endeavor notice that something's flying to them. It's the intelligent Nomu Hood who's flying towards them. The waitress comes in as Hawks protects her, and Endeavor tells the number 2 hero to evacuate the building. The high-end Nomu smashes in and asks which of them is the strongest. Endeavor notes that the rumors were true and is glad that this was well-timed. Hood prepares to attack, but Endeavor takes the initiative first by attacking with Flashfire Fist Jet Burn, a blast of fire that sends Hood out of the building and damages it. Endeavor takes flight by propelling himself in the air with his fire. Endeavor plans to show the Nomu what it means to be the number 1 hero. Endeavor continues to face off against Hood while Hawks is surprised that Endeavor can fly, to which Endeavor responds that he considers it not falling, and warns him to not underestimate the Nomu they're facing. When Hood starts regenerating, Endeavor sees that he possesses a regeneration quirk similar to other black Nomus, while the white Nomus don't have any special quirks, and assumes that the black Nomus are high-quality Nomus with many powerful quirks. Endeavor deduces that the Nomu to be special among the black Nomus since it can speak. Resolving to capture Nomu alive for interrogation, Endeavor uses Flashfire Fist Hell Spider, launching 5 streams of fire from his fingertips. Although 2 streams hit Hood, it doesn't stop its advance and it lunges into Endeavor, plunging Endeavor into the building with great force and sends him to the other side of it. Endeavor releases a great flare of fire that burns Hood's arm, causing it to release Endeavor from its grip. Due to Hood smashing Endeavor across the building, the top half of the building begins collapsing. Hawks uses his quirk Fierce Wings, which allows him to control and manipulate strong and flexible feathers to get all the injured civilians out of the building first. As Hawks' feathers begin delivering the injured down to safety, Hawks himself joins the fight and launches 3 feathers at Hood, which successfully strikes its arm. Endeavor uses his advanced version of Flashfire Fist Hell Spider and strikes Hood with multiple fire streams which cuts up its body. Hawks wonders if this move is Endeavor's strongest, to which Endeavor comments about it not even being close. The cut-up Hood begins regenerating and comments on the fight being interesting. To prevent any other heroes from interrupting his fight with Endeavor, Hood spawns several minor Nomus to deal with them, while regenerating his body completely. The high-end Nomu wonders if Endeavor stopped shooting flames since he isn't able to anymore due to a limitation. Begrudgingly, Endeavor accepts Hood's intuition about his quirk. The more flames he produces, the more heat continually builds up in his body, which raises his body temperature and causes his physical abilities to deteriorate, and he already knows he's inferior in power and speed to begin with. Endeavor recalls that he started a family for his quirk's major drawback. Hood reveals another quirk and is excited to use it on Endeavor. While evading Hood's stretching arms, Endeavor has no choice but to end the battle quickly since he can't maintain an elongated battle due to his quirk's drawback. Endeavor ignites viciously and releases a powerful fire blast called Prominence Burn, which incinerates Hood's body completely. Suddenly, Endeavor sees Hood's head and neck and realizes that it tore it off to avoid completely being incinerated. While regenerating, Hood attacks the recuperating Endeavor by impaling his torso and striking him in the face, potentially destroying his left eye. The rest of the Todoroki family watch the broadcast of the event. Still conscious in spite of his injuries, Endeavor uses his flames to lift himself and he attempts to attack Hood. However, the high-end Nomu evades the strike and sends the pro hero flying into a building, but Endeavor refuses to give in. Using his quirk once more, Endeavor projects himself after the Nomu, who wonders if he has regeneration, but Endeavor was aware that his body was immobile and he's only raising his flames to propel himself and needs a strategy to kill the Nomu since it was impossible to merely capture it. Hawks then uses his feathers to enhance Endeavor's speed, allowing Endeavor to be launched at the villain. Thrust by Hawks' feathers, Endeavor uses the speed to attack Hood, sending them both through the air. He takes note of the Nomu's behavior, which is similar to that of a wild beast, before noticing his regenerative powers were still active and screams for Hawks to give him more speed to help. After Hawks does so and says that his feathers are practically ash, Endeavor states it's more than enough, and uses it to send him and the Nomu far from the city. With nothing to stand in his way, Endeavor uses a finishing move while shouting Plus Ultra, noting he always hated his old school's motto, to destroy Hood for good. Endeavor emerges from the destruction and strikes a pose, similar to All Might's, to show he's victorious. Hawks comes and the two share banter about the pose before moving to get help for Endeavor's wounds. However, they don't get very far as Dabi appears on the scene and greets Endeavor, who is confused by the latter's familiarity with him. Endeavor recognizes Dabi through his blurred vision, shouting that Dabi was the one to kill Snatch, even though Dabi doesn't remember who that is. After formally introducing himself, Dabi puts up a flame wall around the two heroes. Trying to muster up some strength, Endeavor is told by Hawks to rest, and that he'll take care of Dabi for the both of them. However, Mirko suddenly arrives on the scene and stops Dabi, who decides to call upon an ally to fall back. As he escapes, Dabi taunts Endeavor, referring to him by his full name, Enji Todoroki, and wishes to speak with him again before vanishing from the area. With the threat gone, Endeavor blacks out as an announcer shouts the hero duo's victory. Recovering at a hospital, a bandaged Endeavor is visited by Hawks. Enji and Hawks leave the hospital, and Hawks apologizes to Enji for his injuries. Enji says that his injuries are his own responsibility, and asks Hawks if their encounter with Hood was truly a coincidence. Hawks, flustered by Enji's question, attributes the attack to their high-profile presence in the area. Enji leaves as Hawks tells him to get some rest. Arriving at home, Enji sees Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto eating a meal. Fuyumi happily greets her father as he walks in, and congratulates him on his win against Hood. Shoto sarcastically compliments his father's new scar as he and Natsuo continue to be unenthusiastic around him as Fuyumi becomes frantic and Enji voices he can hear her. Natsuo, unable to handle the tense situation, gets up to leave the room. Enji stops him and tells his son that if he has something to say, he can just say it. Stirred on by this, Natsuo unleashes his feelings onto him. Enji remains silent as Natsuo tells him that even though his mother and sister have seemingly forgiven him, he sees that he's still the same person who neglected his children and left them to listen to their mother screaming and brother crying. Natsuo then mentions their other sibling Toya, and that just because Enji defeated a powerful villain doesn't mean he's made up for what he's done. After Natsuo's rant ends, Enji calmly responds that he's going to face his past and atone for it. These words are met with disgust and surprise by Natsuo, who leaves as Fuyumi panics. Recounting the events that led up to this moment and frantically talking to Shoto that she was really happy at the progress she thought was being made and they might be family again. A recap of witness testimonies from the battle plays on the television, with focus given to a particular boy who screamed encouragement from the crowd that watched the battle, which led to the crowd cheering Enji to win. Enji remembers the boy and realizes that the cheering and motivation he received meant a lot to him. Shoto catches his attention and tells him that Endeavor the hero is amazing, but while he agrees with everything Natsuo said, he still wants to see what kind of parent Enji will become. Shoto also tells him that he understands that a small amount of encouragement can completely alter someone. Hearing this, Enji recalls his brief talk with All Might after his retirement and strengthens his resolve to work towards the future of his family. He apologizes to Fuyumi and admits he used the wrong words with Natsuo just before. Joint Training Arc. Enji tries to contact Shoto while at his agency, but receives no reply from his son, only having his messages marked as read by Shoto. While handling a thug, he receives a call from Shoto and complains on his timing. My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. One winter night, authorities were alerted of a cargo being transported by the League of Villains, prompting heroes to try and catch the villains. At the end of a turn is a roadblock, where a group of heroes and Endeavor wait for the League's armored truck to arrive. Dabi sees Endeavor and blasts off blue flames at him, and the latter uses his Flashfire Fist Jet Burn, with both attacks colliding and cancelling each other out. Shortly after, Dabi lets out a massive blast of his flames, to which Endeavor counters with his Prominence Burn. The move overpowers Dabi and engulfs the truck, causing the villains to melt, revealing them to be a double created by Twice's quirk. The truck reels off a cliff. Endeavor descends to study the cargo that the League was supposed to deliver, finding that Hawks is already there. Endeavor blames him for not helping out, to which Hawks replies that he had just arrived. Endeavor asks him about the League members, and Hawks answers that they were only copies made from Twice's quirk. When examining the contents of the truck, they find that the life support tank is empty. Hawks suspects that the tank was carrying a new kind of Nomu, but later believes that it's something else. In the aftermath of Nine's invasion on Nabu Island, Endeavor goes to the island to aid Class 1A and embraces Shoto as he's revealed to be alright. Shoto, however, isn't pleased. Endeavor Agency Arc. After the Hero Course's Christmas party, Shoto offers Midoriya and Bakugo positions in the Endeavor Hero Agency for the internship. They accept with approval from All Might and prepare for their internship. The students meet with Endeavor on an overpass in the city. Endeavor is upset that there are 3 of them, as he had hoped to intern Shoto alone. He tells them that he only cares about interning Shoto as he jumps off the overpass, telling them to stand back and watch as he flies off. He looks back to see 3 students are right behind him. The 3 students soon chase Endeavor through the city, but Endeavor, using flash fire, is too fast for them to follow. In a business district, a villain called Star Servant was causing havoc with his glass manipulation quirk and had just launched a super move, Enlightened Fallen King, sending a giant ball of glass flying down the street. Endeavor flies in and destroys the glass ball with Flash Fire Fist, then confronts Star Servant, who runs away. As Endeavor gives chase, Star Servant leads him through an alley where he has 3 minions ready to ambush. The ambush fails as Izuku, Katsuki, and Hawks arrive and take down the minions, allowing Endeavor to catch Star Servant. As the police arrive to take Star Servant away, he starts saying that Endeavor is the root of the darkness that will consume the world, which seems to have some impact on him. He then asks Hawks why he's there. Hawks responds by promoting the Paranormal Liberation Front's book, saying it's a good read. Endeavor is taken aback, possibly under the impression that Hawks had defected to Destro's ideology. Once at his agency, Enji leaves the 3 students with the flaming sidekickers. While he locks himself in his office to read the book Hawks gave him, Endeavor noticed that there's something unusual about Hawks' expression while he was offering him Destro's autobiography. Hawks gives him the book, asking him to make sure he reads it well, especially the lines that he underlined. In doing so, Endeavor understands the encrypted message in which Hawks warns him about a threat that will attack within 4 months. Remembering then a conversation he had with the Public Safety Commission president, who asked him to help students to gain experience fighting villains, Endeavor finally understands what he has to do. He leaves his office and tells the 3 students that he will train them personally. Later at the agency's gym, Endeavor wants Izuku and Katsuki to talk about themselves and asks them what they want to achieve. Izuku is the first to talk, saying he wants to be able to control his quirk and use it with maximum performance. Also, recently his quirk has manifested in a different way and wants to use this new power as a weapon. Endeavor recalls the conversation he had with him before his battle against Shoto in the tournament of the UA Sports Festival. Endeavor empathizes with him since, like him and his sons, he has a quirk that's able to hurt himself and tells Izuku that he's like them. Then Endeavor asks Katsuki what he wants to achieve, and he replies that he already has a powerful quirk and a great mastery with it, and he just wants to find out what it is that he lacks in order to surpass the #1 hero. Endeavor concludes the presentations and wants to start the training already, but Shoto tells him that he didn't ask him. Endeavor is sure that his goal is to master the Flash Fire Fist, but Shoto is straight up with his father about what he thinks, saying that he comes to his agency is to use him and learn from him, but his true inspiration is All Might, and tells him to stop trying to act like a father figure with him in front of his friends. Endeavor grieves at Shoto's words. He thought Shoto was finally starting to forgive him, but he's wrong. After accepting this, he decides to start the training. Endeavor goes out with his 3 interns. He tells them the 3 fundamentals of hero work: rescue, evacuation, and battle. With his training, they will not only improve their skills and quirks, but also detect and stop the slightest threats before anyone else, keeping the damage to a minimum. Endeavor ends the lesson by telling Izuku, Shoto, and Katsuki that, during the winter break, their task is to beat a villain faster than him, even if only once. Before going home, Enji recalls his recurring dream in which he sees his wife and children happily sitting around the dinner table, but he isn't with them. Enji has another internal monologue that he only approaches his family as a hero, not as a father. At dinner, Fuyumi then reveals that Natsuo also did some cooking as well, though Natsuo states that since he overseasoned the food, Endeavor made him stop. Endeavor apologizes for not knowing prior. After Natsuo leaves, still unable to sit near his father, while the others were cleaning up, Izuku asks Katsuki if he knew about Shoto's past, to which he reveals he was listening when the 2 of them were talking during the UA Sports Festival. Enji overhears this as he walks into another room to put a plate of food on the Butsudan Buddhist altar in their home and puts his hands together in prayer. He once again monologues what he can do for them at this stage, and having the same dream. He looks at a picture of his eldest son Toya Todoroki and wishes he was here. Endeavor comes in the dining room and tells the 3 boys that he'll be taking them to school. After the 3 thank Fuyumi for the meal, Endeavor thanks Fuyumi for her hard work, to which she accepts with a smile. As the 4 return to the hero office, Endeavor tells the 3 of them that he wants them to try and get stronger on weekdays and weekends if their schedule allows it. Endeavor soon notices a man having captured Natsuo in the road's lane lines using a manipulation quirk and yelling for him to come out. The driver has to swerve and maneuver to avoid running over the villain. Jumping out the car, Endeavor demands that his son be released. The man reveals himself as a villain called Ending, who Endeavor recalls that he beat 7 years ago and challenges him to a rematch, or else his son dies. Ending yells to Endeavor, brings up under the most extreme circumstances, a hero will never kill someone. Ending, however, cites how Endeavor killed Hood and compares himself to said Nomu after the life he's led, so Endeavor doesn't have to worry about killing another puppet. After Ending is caught off guard by Shoto and the others, he takes the moment to attack but halts after seeing Natsuo held in the middle, not wanting to endanger him and allowing the 3 students to press forward. Once the civilians are safe and Ending is defeated by Shoto, Endeavor embraces Natsuo, who is saved by Katsuki, that is also hugged much to his annoyance, grateful that his son's life is safe. He remarks internally how in 1 week, the 3 of them were able to successfully put what he had been teaching them into practice, as their growth was able to save a life. Holding his son and Katsuki, Endeavor asks Natsuo if he's hurt. While Natsuo only mentions how hot Endeavor's grasp is, Natsuo soon breaks free of Endeavor's grasp, as Endeavor reveals that he stopped to think in that moment, fearing that if he were to save him, then Natsuo would never speak to him again. Natsuo hears his father confess that he never meant to neglect him and Fuyumi all those years, but acknowledges that he failed to take responsibility by running away from them. He also acknowledges that he feels it's his own fault for Toya's fate. After Natsuo tells him he doesn't care, for he heard everything from Toya growing up, and declares he will never forgive Endeavor because he doesn't see himself as kind as Shoto or Fuyumi. Endeavor states he still came out for Fuyumi and Rei's sake, and that he was trying to respect the feelings of his sister who's trying so hard to fix the family that Endeavor broke, signifying that Endeavor sees Natsuo as kind enough. Endeavor then states it's okay if Natsuo doesn't forgive him because he's not looking for it, he just wants him to atone for his mistakes. After Natsuo becomes teary-eyed, Natsuo tells him that Fuyumi had been so happy lately, but every time he looks at him, he thinks of everything in the past. He questions why he has to be the only one to try and proactively change, and what exactly will Endeavor do to atone. Before Endeavor can respond, Ending speaks up, wailing that his arrogant, ferocious flame is sizzling out. The police eventually arrive where they state Ending used the drug to enhance his quirk, while noting that they've been decreasing in numbers on the black market. After returning home with Natsuo, Endeavor watches Fuyumi worry over her brother. Endeavor then speaks up to commend Fuyumi about the home she's trying to build for her mother to return to, and voices how all he could do was rely on her. He then declares that he'll have a new house built in a more convenient location for her and Natsuo where she can welcome their mother back to. When Fuyumi questions what he'll do, Endeavor reveals he intends to stay at the abode and live alone, as he realizes that the only thing he could do to help his family for now is to take himself out of the equation. Paranormal Liberation War Arc. Endeavor and multiple heroes from across Japan are rallied by the Hero Commission Service, who reveal that they have info on where the recently formed Paranormal Liberation Front is currently residing thanks to Hawks. Endeavor is assigned a team of his own to raid the Jaku General Hospital. The heroes all launch their move to take down the Paranormal Liberation Front once and for all. Endeavor leads his team to evacuate any civilians inside Jaku Hospital. While proceeding to do that, Endeavor and a few pro-heroes discover Dr. Garaki wandering about in the hallway. Endeavor recognizes the man as All For One's right-hand man and primary source behind manufacturing Nomu, vowing to put an end to his madness. Kyudai attempts to flee from the pro-heroes only for Shota to stop him with his capturing weapon. Endeavor watches on as Shota and Hisashi call out the old bastard for ruining many innocent lives, and now it's time he'd pay for his crimes. Endeavor also notices Kyudai's appearance deteriorating due to Shota's erasure quirk. However, Mirko contacts the hospital raid team and reveals that multiple Nomu are starting to emerge underground. The heroes brace themselves as the aforementioned Nomu arrive, much to the dismay of Endeavor himself. Endeavor realizes that as he watches Kyudai melt away, the man they just confronted was a double from twice his quirk. Soon as Mirko manages to fend off some of the incomplete high-ends released by Kyudai, Endeavor reaches the laboratory and intercepts the woman high-end just in time for the other heroes to show up, allowing Endeavor and his team to finish off the remaining high-ends. Afterwards, the heroes are forced to flee the hospital once it starts rapidly decaying due to Tomura awakening and unleashing his true power. Endeavor carries Mirko and an unnamed hero while trying to escape the crumbling building. Eventually, Endeavor and some of his allies survive the decay, but lose a few of their close comrades. After this, Tomura orders Gigantomachia to meet him, bringing with him the League of Villains. Endeavor decides to confront Tomura himself to prevent All For One's successor from spreading his madness across the world. First, he unleashes Flashfire Fist, Hell's Curtain, tramping Tomura in a scorched inferno to which Endeavor says there's no escape from. Internally, Endeavor says that he can't let Tomura take any step further, so for now, he'll try to incapacitate him. Tomura escapes the flames and tries to touch Endeavor to disintegrate him, but Endeavor dodges it and counterattacks, surprising that he managed to withstand the burning effects that he inflicted to him using super regeneration. Then Endeavor grabs Tomura and tries to incinerate him, and while doing this, he uses the communication device to inform that the others are currently engaging Tomura, and requests that the heroes who can fly to form a perimeter. Tomura blasts Endeavor away and salvage a couple of quirk-erasing drugs for future purposes. Endeavor returns to continue attacking, and despite the violent combat, Tomura seems distracted as something inside urges him to seize One For All, mentioning it out loud while fighting. Endeavor is confused by his words, which are captured by the communication system, reaching Izuku's ears. Urged by this desire to get one for all, Tomura stops fighting and walks away in the direction of Izuku after having detected him with his search quirk. Endeavor reports that Tomura is heading to the evacuation zone and gives the proper orders. Izuku, followed by Katsuki, moves away from the area so as not to put innocents in danger, and communicates to Endeavor that Tomura is after him. Endeavor asks Izuku what he's talking about, but he replies he'll explain later. While in the air, Tomura gets an idea to get Endeavor out of his way and disrupt communications, which involve him combining air cannon with radio waves to release a blast that jams all the communicators. Tomura finally catches up with Izuku and tries to steal One for All from him, but he and Katsuki are saved by Gran Torino. While still in the air, Tomura brings the communicator up to his face and orders a large group of near Hien Nomu's recipients to kill anyone in sight to prevent more heroes from appearing to help. Endeavor charges for his sidekick Kido, who uses his traject quirk to change Endeavor's trajectory straight up at Tomura. After reaching him, Endeavor unleashes a blast of fire, but Tomura dodges to the right, though his left arm does get burned, which he says it really hurts. Ryukyu flies towards Tomura, but the villain slams Endeavor into her, sending them both plummeting into the ground. As a sort of mockery, Tomura stands triumphantly over them while raising his right arm in the air, similar to when Endeavor raised his left arm after defeating Hood. Endeavor tries to strike him again, but Tomura dodges and moves away from him to take out Eraserhead, but he's tackled by Izuku before he can do it. Endeavor, Izuku, Katsuki, and Gran Torino constantly attack Tomura while Eraserhead continues to use his erasure to prevent him from using his quirks. Tomura runs in the direction of Eraserhead to neutralize him because he's the one who's causing him the most problems by making it impossible for him to use his quirks. He's tackled by Gran Torino, but Tomura defeats him with ease, severely injuring him. Tomura continues in the direction of Eraserhead, this time being tackled by an angry Izuku and Ryukyu, who manage to contain him, allowing Katsuki and Endeavor to charge forward. Tomura, however, digs through Ryukyu's hands, carrying a couple of quirk-destroying drug bullets, and aims for Eraserhead's position. Ryukyu sees the bullet and warns the others. Katsuki is able to destroy one of them, but the other bullet successfully hit Eraserhead in his crippled left leg, forcing him to cut it off before the drug could spread throughout his body. However, this causes him to blink briefly, momentarily cancelling his erasure, allowing Tomura to unleash a shockwave to break free of Ryukyu's grip and flies straight for Eraserhead, getting rid of Ryukyu and dodging Endeavor's blow, and manages to dig his fingers into Eraserhead's face. Izuku yanks him back with Black Whip at the same time Tomura is struck by a pillar vice from Shoto, who just arrived, but they can't prevent Tomura from severely injuring Eraserhead's face, forcing him to close his eyes due to the wounds. As a result, Tomura is successfully able to heal himself with super regeneration, and he looks to the heroes saying that as much as they delayed it, the only fate that awaits them is total destruction. Endeavor asks his son where he was, and he explains he went to help Ryukyu and the others. He also surrounds Endeavor in ice to help him cool off. Tomura then announces it's time for everyone to die, just as his body begins to deteriorate, as he noticed he was awakened a month before his body could adapt to contain the incredible power of All for One. Nevertheless, Tomura's regeneration finally kicks in, and he attempts to use his decay quirk again to finish everyone off. But Deku jumps into the air, carrying everyone with Black Whip, declaring that he will finish him with everything that he has. Before attacking Tomura, Izuku releases the heroes, telling them to take care of the wounded. Then, knowing that even Tomura's body has a limit, Izuku manages to strike him in midair over and over with the One for All 100%, regardless of the injuries he suffers as a result. On the ground, everyone's surprised by Izuku's display of power, but Katsuki states that he won't be able to continue like this for long. So he grabs Shoto and Endeavor as he tells him to hold off on the fire until he gets up in the air and for Shoto to cool him off as long as possible. Endeavor accepts Katsuki's plan. The three fly into the air as Endeavor tells Katsuki to aim for when Black Whip is completely extended, and when he gets up there, the two need to get back to the ground as they may get caught up in the fire. As the three reach the fight, Endeavor grabs Tomura as he yells for Deku to get down as he incinerates Tomura with the full power of Prominence Burn. Despite burning him alive, something happens inside Tomura's mind, and Endeavor gets stabbed by wires emitting from his back, and he wonders why he won't die. Tomura says something unintelligible before firing the wires at Izuku, calling him his little brother. Katsuki, without even thinking, pushes Deku out of the way and receives the full force of the attack. Shoto manages to grab his father and Katsuki, while Deku, after his mind snapped with rage for what just happened, goes berserk on Tomura, although the only thing he gets is that his nemesis put his hand on his face and starts stealing the quirk. But something prevents him from doing it, and both Deku and Tomura fall away from one another in the sky. Shoto catches Izuku while still holding onto Katsuki and his father, and drops them on the ground with the relief that the three of them are still alive. Just as he's about to administer first aid, Gigantomachia finally arrives carrying the remaining members of the Paranormal Liberation Front on his back, as everyone watches in horror. Dabi emerges from the back of Gigantomachia and greets Endeavor and Shoto as Endeavor calls him by his name. Dabi, however, asks he not be called that as he pours a liquid on his head, washing off the black coloration on his white hair. Dabi then reveals that his true identity is that of Toya Todoroki, his eldest son whom he believed dead. His proclamation horrifies Shoto and Endeavor to their very core. Dabi also confesses that in those moments, his pre-recorded history is being broadcasted all around the airwaves and the internet, revealing Endeavor's darkest secrets and his abusive past on his family. Dabi reveals that his initial plan was to wait until Shoto became all big and famous before killing him, but after their father became the #1 hero, he thought of another way to make Endeavor suffer as much as possible, as he has always wanted to destroy his life and career as a hero by crushing his dreams in revenge for what he did, without caring about putting his own family in danger, as he was also the one who sent Star Servant and Ending against him. All of this makes Endeavor think back to when Toya was still young, training him to be a successor and reach his eternal goal, until the tragic incident that caused his apparent death. Back to the present, a dumbfounded Endeavor demands that Dabi take back the despicable lie, but Dabi retorts that it's the despicable truth. Dabi mockingly thanks Endeavor for going strong up until now as he jumped off Gigantomachia's back, aiming for him. Endeavor, still in shock, admits to himself that at the time, he kept searching for Toya, never once thinking he was dead. Shoto, however, tries to get him to protect Deku and the others and worry about the rest later while he and Nejire fight him off. Dabi descends covered in fire as he attempts to use Endeavor's Prominence Burn move. Before he can unleash his attack, Dabi finds himself tied up with wires from the sky. He turns to face his assailant, and it turns out to be Best Jeanist, who has jumped out of the plane apologizing for the delay and is ready to resume duty. Using the many wires he brought with him, he successfully binds all of the League of Villains with his quirk, including Gigantomachia. Dabi manages to free himself, burning the wires, clashing with his youngest brother Shoto, who reveals to him that one of the villains he sent Endeavor's way nearly killed Natsuo. Dabi, however, merely says it was a shame he didn't die, because then Endeavor would have suffered more. An incredulous Shoto asks Dabi if he's insane, and Dabi confirms he doesn't feel a thing anymore. He starts to push Shoto back, excited at the thought of finally being able to kill him. Dabi overcomes his youngest brother and prepares to kill him with his blue flames. He looks at Endeavor, who still has a look of horror on his face, and said that he's excited at the thought of Endeavor about to see his puppet masterpiece get incinerated by his failed experiment. Suddenly, Izuku shoots a black whip from his mouth, separating them. Izuku shouts at Dabi that his father is atoning for his past sins to become a better person, and that Dabi isn't Endeavor. Izuku's words help Endeavor break out of his trance, just as Gigantomachia breaks free from Best Jeanist's fibers. Endeavor uses every last bit of strength he has to fly up and knock the giant back, knocking himself out as a result. After this last attack, Endeavor is unconscious for the remainder of the battle. The battle ends with almost all of the members of the Paranormal Liberation Front arrested, but some managed to escape, in addition to which dozens of heroes and hundreds of civilians were killed. People all across the country start talking about Dabi's video, with some wondering if it spells the end of Endeavor's hero career and what will happen next. After spending 2 days in the hospital, Enji wakes up from his coma and is informed by the doctor that his son and the others are mostly fine. After leaving him alone, he remembers the battle he had with his eldest son and his inability to fight to protect Shoto. He admits that he's reaping everything he's sowed and that the hero Endeavor died back there. Endeavor realizes that while his son might be a mass murderer, he can't fight him, and tears start forming in his eyes. He notices Shoto entering the room and calls his name out, though his son initially closes the door when he sees his father crying. When he reopens the door, Endeavor sees his 2 other children standing with Shoto. Endeavor asks if they're all okay, though Natsuo replies by asking why he's crying. Enji profusely apologizes once again, realizing that the regrets and guilt he feels right now are too late to matter. As his heart is about to shatter, he's shocked by the sudden arrival of his wife Rei Todoroki, who asserts that the rest of his family has been riddled with those same guilt and regrets for much longer than he has, and that she's come to discuss about their eldest son Toya. As they reminisce about Toya's childhood and growing mental instability up until the tragic night of his disappearance, Rei points out that despite Toya imploring his dad to come and see him practice his new flames, Enji didn't show up, to which he responds that he was afraid it would encourage him to train harder, before admitting that he actually just didn't know what to say to him, and neither did Rei. After that, Rei, Fuyumi, and Natsuo acknowledged that while Endeavor was the main cause, they each had their own share of responsibilities for Dabi's birth and their family rupture. Following that, Shoto expresses his will to fight and stop Toya together with his father once he was done grieving, moving him to tears. Eventually, Hawks and Best Jeanist enter Endeavor's hospital room to join their discussion. Hawks first conveys his stupor to Endeavor when he learnt of the full consequence of his old obsession with becoming the #1 hero, causing him some discomfort. Then he asks him about Shoto's burn scar, but Rei is the one who admits being responsible for it. Hawks then gives a status report on Japan's state for the past 2 days, mentioning how the remaining Paranormal Liberation Front leaders and members as well as the near-high-end Nomus are on the run. After that, Hawks asks Endeavor about the nature of what Shigaraki was after, called One for All. When he hears that, Endeavor suddenly remembers Deku informing him that Shigaraki was probably after him. Enji supposedly learned about One for All from All Might around the same time as Hawks and Best Jeanist. 3 days later, they left the hospital and made a public announcement together. He apologetically confirmed Dabi's claims and accusations toward him, and confessed everything about his family's past, shocking and disgusting the general public. At one point, a woman from the audience spoke up to express her anger about her mother getting injured during Gigantomachia's rampage, the heroes seemingly glossing over the damage done over the past week, and their apparent lack of guilt. So Enji made her understand that at the moment, showing their own pain and suffering to the public wouldn't change anything, as putting society at ease and taking down every single villain is the only way Endeavor can atone. He then implores the audience and the entire population to direct all their criticisms and doubts not at the heroes who will be putting their lives on the line, but at him alone, and to watch only him. Eventually, the journalists asked him about the nature of One for All, in which he replied that he didn't know anything in order to protect Deku and All Might. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. I'm Adrian, thanks for watching, I'm out.